Let's see the view here. Try to get everybody. I don't know how to change my view. I can't tell. There's 10 people in here, but I only see like 5 of you. How's it going, y'all? Everybody doing good this morning?
Can you do the gallery view, Mike? Are you not being able to do that?
I don't know. I'm not prone to these technical difficulties. There we go. Now we're cooking. Okay. Sorry about that, y'all. So I just posted our icebreaker question today. So this is something, if you've joined Creative Mornings Columbia before, you're well familiar with these questions. Our question today is, who would you want to play you in the movie version of your life? So everyone has an answer to this. Everyone's thought about it. Let's hear it. What do we got?
I went with an ensemble cast. It would start out with Marseille Martin playing me as young me. Then Gabrielle Union would take over. My sister came up with that. And then older me would be played by Tracy Ellis Ross.
Of course. Yeah. That's a solid lineup.
I don't know when we switch from Gabrielle to Tracy, but I just feel like that would be a good, yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's a great start. Who's next?
I mean, my answer is going to always be the same, is because I'm so obsessed with her, is Connie Britton, because she's forever. Tammy Taylor is my goal. So, I just feel like Connie Britton, we both have red hair. We're both fair complected. She's way better looking than me, but I'll take it. I don't know about a younger version, though. I mean, Diamond really showed us up on the younger, middle, older version.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain now. Because I think Denzel really captures my essence, but, I didn't think of a younger.
There's a lot of confidence to be like, Denzel captures my essence.
He's close.
I mean, but hey, listen, his son,
right.
What's his name?
Yeah.
He's got 2 names.
He's in the Tenet movie. Yeah, he's in that new movie.
John David,
yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Because he was a football player.
Right, yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was John Mark, John Michael, or John David.
I could definitely be wrong.
All right, so our icebreaker today, we had a couple people join. Who would you want to play you in the movie version of your life? Who's up? Who's got something for us?
I'll go. My name's Mark Abbott, by the way. I think I would do Gary Oldman, just because he's very versatile, and he would give the sort of he would give the drama that isn't necessarily in my life, but would just be kind of funny to watch how Gary Oldman would portray me.
Yeah.
I love Gary Oldman. He's Sirius Black forever in my brain, but I love Gary Oldman.
Mark, Gary can also play you in the movie version of my life.
Okay, good.
Full crossover.
We create a whole universe.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, there's going to be like sequels and stuff. That's good. Who's up?
I feel like if it was going to be a rom-com, I would do Drew Barrymore, because I love her in rom-coms, and I just think of like that 90s rom-com era. I've been told that I look like Eva Green, which I don't agree with. Maybe when I have black hair.
Who's Eva Green, Fran? I don't know who that is.
She was in one of the like more recent James Bond movies. I think maybe the first one with Daniel Craig. I can't remember. And she's kind of in like weird, like Tim Burton-y type movies.
Yeah.
She was in the
She's very
Peculiar
European,
House of Kids, maybe, that Tim Burton did, based on the young adult graphic or novels.
Does she have like a Helena Bonham Carter vibe or something? Like kind of weird?
Kind of, but not as much. Like toned down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So her, or maybe Melanie Linsky. She's a New Zealand actress who was in Heavenly Creatures. If any of you have seen that, it's really good. And I think she was in like 2.5 Men or something.
The question is, Fran, do you want an American to play you and really do a terrible Kiwi
Yeah,
accent?
that's exactly
I
what I
don't.
was
No, no.
Like, I
Not
need
doing
an
that.
actual Kiwi to play me.
That's an interesting idea, though, in terms of, okay, is the movie a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it a thriller? There's some. I was so prepared for this. I had that Denzel line on Tuesday, right? But you guys are bringing up different components I hadn't even really considered. I think, Craig, last time you mentioned, I think we're talking about another job, another life, or something like directing. So you've got somebody, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say Zac Efron because I would just like to be Zac Efron.
Yes.
But I don't know if anybody saw the reading of Fast Times at Ridgemont High with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking I would like Shia LaBeouf just to bring the kind of chaotic energy into playing me. So that's what my answer is gonna be.
Yeah.
I have a strong affinity for Shia LaBeouf. I love him. I'm rooting for him always.
He's awesome.
Yeah, Shia's getting some love in the comments as well. Yeah, if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you can just chat it, and then I'll call you out, and you'll have to talk.
I have one, and I'm not gonna put my video on because my hair is still up in a towel from the shower, which plays into who I would choose pretty well, I think, which is Catherine O'Hara. I would love for her to play me. That would be incredible. And so I don't have one of my girls on, my wigs on. So that'd be her.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Nice.
I know. I love it. Moira Rose's wigs all have names too, so that adds to the allure, Laura.
That's great. That's so good. Who's got something for me?
I usually go with Liev Schreiber, mostly because the name anagrams and the looks are close enough. But I think that just shows how long it's been since I've seen a movie now.
That's fair. Jeremy, I feel like you've thought about this at least once or twice. Who plays you?
Well, I was going to say Denzel until Mike stole it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get on that one early.
Yeah, I logged on too slow. So I thought about this when I got the email, and my answer is definitely Edward Norton. And I'm thinking like early, like Primal Fear, Fight Club.
Scary Edward Norton. Ooh.
Yeah. And it's because I feel like he can look like a normal guy on the outside, but he's just like a monster on the inside, like a total mess, super psychotic. So I feel like he could do that for me. Have you seen 25th Hour? One of my favorite movies. It's a Spike Lee movie. Wasn't super popular, but that's what I'm thinking. Edward Norton, that era.
Like Fight Club Edward Norton.
Yeah, not like Wes Anderson Edward Norton. I feel like that's a different.
That's a different vibe.
That's a different vibe altogether. I don't know that.
Different Norton. Yeah.
I mean, but Jeremy, Denzel could play you. I mean, I feel like Hamilton taught us one thing that anybody can play anybody. It doesn't necessarily need to be like anyone.
Yeah, I would take it.
Well, and Jeremy and Craig, I'm gonna pick up. Both of you guys mentioned, like certain eras of people are like, I need Fast Time at Ridgemont High screen reading Shia LaBeouf, like certain moments in time. I love that angle. That's great. Ooh, we got some comments. It's popping off in here.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa Kudrow. Yeah, solid.
Sarah said, I like to think it's because she's funny, but also she's a little weird. I love that Diamond confirmed, like, yeah, I can see that. That's
No, Sarah, sorry. Yeah.
Now I can't unsee it.
I know. Well, and it's literally my parents' friends, anytime they would come over, and they were all big Friends fans, and they would call me Phoebes from like age like 7 to like 22. Like still when I see one of my parents' friends, he still calls me Phoebes, which is funny to me, but I'll take it. I like her.
Nice. Who would you want to play you in the movie version of your life? Who hasn't gone? I mean, I could call out my wife. Oh, Miranda moved. She's unmuted. Yes.
It just came to me because I don't know, I just like mostly watch cartoons. Can't always be Princess Bubblegum. But Emma Watson, and I think it's because of her job in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I know I'm like behind the times, but I recently just saw the movie, even though I've been a big fan of the book. But it's like, I think that would be good, but like mixed with like Hermione's hair, like from first Harry Potter movie, like I think it could work.
Yeah. Oh, Kayla's stumped.
I don't know who I would want to play Kayla. Really
Yeah,
That
open to suggestions.
It was fun to share this with friends and family last night and then them determine who would play them in the movie, or for you to have to make a guess who would play them in your movie. So this icebreaker can go out into your daily lives as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I noticed as soon as Kayla participated, there were two cats. Just pop up.
Yeah, that feels on brand, Kayla.
Right on cue. Maybe you need a cat to play you.
Yes, please.
Like, is Grumpy Cat gonna play you, Kayla?
R.I.P. R.I.P. Grumpy Cat.
That's really funny.
I don't know. Is there like a cat lady actress? I have no idea.
I don't know. I feel like we should know this, but I don't know.
Yeah. My first thought this morning was like, I was just thinking of blonde actresses. I was like Jennifer Lawrence for like a drama, or like Amy Schumer for a comedy. And then I don't know. I don't really like either of those people that much. So.
Kayla, I was kind of thinking Kristen Wiig too, because she can play so many types of characters.
Oh my gosh, Kayla, that just like, Kayla and I, okay, so you don't know this, Diamond, but Kayla and I love when Kristen Wiig plays the Target lady, you know, she always has, and then does the classic Peg Target lady. So that fits, Kayla, that's
There you go.
Classic Peg.
It's the Target lady. That should be your Halloween costume this year. I mean, I know you're not really going anywhere for Halloween this year.
Right. Speaking of Shia, I saw a Halloween costume idea to be Stanley Yelnats from Holes, and I was into that idea, wearing an orange jumpsuit all night. So
Good stuff. I think we figured out, if anything else in this conversation, that Diamond is an expert at this game.
Diamond, I need you to do me. Can you do me as a younger?
Yeah, we're gonna need a report.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Lindsay, I actually really like Connie Britton for you.
I love her.
Yeah, but younger you.
I don't know. I was I say was weird. Like I was weird. I still am weird, but
Diamond's got the lingo down and everything, though. I've got Connie Britton for you. Yeah, you're in business. This is good.
If you all want to write a screenplay, just holler. I'll help with casting.
Yeah.
We finally found my creative spot. It only took how many meetings?
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, so for the last couple of weeks, because I got bangs recently, so this is a new haircut, but I had a couple of people tell me that I remind them of Lucy Boynton in the she's in the Rami Malek Bohemian Rhapsody. She plays his love interest in that movie, and several people are like, you look like Lucy Boynton, and I didn't really. She's a bleach blonde like Bob, but in that movie she gives me some me vibes, I guess. But
Nice.
Hi, I'm Elise.
Hi,
Elise. I tried to think of this for a long time and I wasn't coming up with anybody. So I'm gonna say that I would like somebody to have their revival, their second wind with the movie of my life. And usually my hair is curly. So I'm gonna say Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And also I love Dirty Dancing, so.
Although she does look so different now post nose surgery. So I saw her on something not that long ago and it took me a second to place her because I thought something's different about her and I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah, it's like the guy from Saved by the Bell. He's like an actor now. Not that he wasn't always, but like he's doing some serious stuff. The guy that played, you know, the main guy.
Mark Hostler.
Yeah, and he looks so different.
He's also like
doesn't still have like the swoopy hair.
Yeah, he's also like 55 years old now or something. So makes a difference. All right, Mike, if you want to wrap it up.
I think we're good.
We're going to get started.
Sweet. Sounds good.
So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Creative Mornings Columbia. So what we're going to do is run through the deck of slides that we need to run through at each of these events. If you're unfamiliar with us, we have some sponsors globally and locally that we need to thank along the way. So we're going to run through that, and then afterward, with a couple of community folks, Jeremy and Miranda, are going to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about their personal experience with the theme of transit. And then we'll move right into the main talk with Elise and a few guests that she has. So I'm going to share my screen with you, run through some slides, and then we'll go there. Just as a heads up, since Zoom does a waiting room feature now, I've got to continually let folks in. So if anyone's late and it looks like I'm doing something else, that's probably what's going on there. So let me run through the slides with you. All right. All right, so as you know, this is Creative Mornings. You are currently a part of our local chapter. So if you have not already followed us on social media, I encourage you to do so. That's the best way to find out about our events. And again, for those of you who are new, these events are really meant to be in-person gatherings. But again, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, we are restricted to virtual gatherings until further notice. So because we can't really see each other in person and have these exchanges, it's important for you to be involved in our social media channels so you can find out what's going on. Hopefully we're able to meet in person sometime in 2021, but until further notice, we are doing these via Zoom. And also, I'm going to move on to a different slide. Okay, so we have a different set of sponsors this month. So WordPress is no longer a global sponsor. We are sticking with MailChimp and Basecamp. So let's see here. Oh, can you guys still see that? You good? Okay. I'm having some weird stuff over here. So MailChimp is our official global partner for marketing. So they have recently done a collaboration between MailChimp and Vice, launching an initiative called Essentials. And so Essentials is a video series and that amid COVID-19, a lot of small businesses have kind of been forced to get creative about how they're interacting with customers. And so this is a video series that MailChimp and Vice put together that interviews and follows around some restaurateurs, some bike messengers, a laundromat, a food bank, and just showing how these folks are coping amid the pandemic. I haven't watched this series yet, but I have seen some of the other partnership series they've done, and it's pretty fascinating. So if you're interested, these are short videos and just kind of learning more about how folks around the world are working in the middle of a pandemic, I encourage you to check that out. Our other sponsor is Basecamp, our global partner for project management. And recently, Basecamp has launched an email initiative called Hey. So Basecamp wouldn't exist today if an email exchange didn't happen between the founders. And so they have launched a new series that you can check out. I think it's a podcast called Rework, but the first podcast is actually super fascinating. I had a chance to listen to this. It was the email that changed my life, just kind of talking a bit about how they launched their business. And they interview artists, writers, other creative folks. So if you're looking for something to listen to or something new, I'm a podcast junkie. So anytime there's something new to listen to and be inspired by, I am always down to check that out. So I encourage you to do that. Outside of our global sponsors, we have a few local sponsors. And again, a lot of the benefits local sponsors are providing us, we're not able to take advantage of right now because we're all remote. But Camacho Coffee is our coffee sponsor. If you haven't had a chance to check out Camacho, you can actually buy the beans in the local store. So if you are inclined to do so, you can check that out. And I'm pretty sure they're launching a storefront soon. So that should be exciting. Outside of that, Cosmic Sauce is our video agency. So when we do in-person gatherings, they film those for us. So we have more of a streamlined video outside of just a Zoom gathering. Verbosity Interactive is another agency that is a local sponsor for us, and they actually pay for our coffee every month. So Camacho kind of gives us a discount on the beans, but we're thankful to have Verbosity and Dean over there to purchase those for us. And our last sponsor here locally is Equipment Share. They are our breakfast sponsor, so we do have the chance to meet in person. They'll be purchasing the breakfast for each of our in-person events. Again, we're not able to meet in person. We're all aware of that, but these folks all these local sponsors have really sponsored us from the beginning and been a champion of this organization. So just wanted to make sure we give them a shout out each month. Again, we're all remote and we're all looking for new things to do, new things to learn. The Creative Mornings does have an initiative called Virtual Field Trips. So prior to the pandemic, these field trips were actually in person locally. You could go check out a creative studio or someone's gallery, but what we're doing now is doing them virtually. So it actually gives you the opportunity to check out someone's field trip that's in maybe Germany or in Canada or in Mexico. So we have chapters of Creative Mornings all over the world. So it's a cool opportunity to kind of step inside someone else's worldview for a bit and to learn something along the way. So if you haven't checked these out yet, they're free. You just have to sign up. All right, sorry guys, you got someone wanting to come in. All right, and then just as like I mentioned, because we have organizations all over the world, it's always good to remind ourselves that we're not in this alone. So we have 215 chapters all over the world that are also meeting remotely, which is an awesome opportunity too. So if you're not free on a Friday that we're hosting an event, but you're free the following Friday, there are events happening every single Friday every month. So if you have a free Friday to check out someone else's event, I encourage you to do so. You just register the same way you did for this event. So I've had a chance to kind of check out some of those, and it's pretty cool. Some are not in English, so just keep that in mind if English is your only language, but for the most part, there are lots of opportunities where there isn't a language barrier. So I'd encourage you to check those out. Before we move into our Creative Mornings Manifesto and our monthly theme, I wanted to give a couple of local folks an opportunity to share. Before they get started, if you have any problems with the Zoom along the way, or you have any questions about anything, you can put those questions in the chat and someone from our team will respond to you. Also, if you are a creative locally that wants to partner with someone or you're looking to collaborate, you can also put your information there. If you're hiring, if you're looking for a job, you can feel free to put those things in the chat. Diamond's going to gather those for us and put those in a document that I can send out to everyone later if they're interested. Otherwise, I encourage you to kind of keep the chat to a minimum so we don't distract folks as they're speaking. But right now, I wanted to go ahead and give our community members a chance to share about the transit theme before we kick it over to Elise for our main talk. So Miranda, I wanted to let you go first if you wanted to do a little bit of sharing about your experience and how it relates to the theme. And then once you're done, Jeremy, I'll kick it over to you. All right, Miranda.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I am an artist that works with large-scale infrastructure as inspiration for my sculptures and installations. And more specifically, since 2013, I've been working with maps. And then while in a residency in downtown Kansas City, I was just really curious in the area that my studio was located and its accessibility and how it connected to the areas around me. So I started looking at Google Maps, just trying to get a feel for the neighborhood and for the city grid when I came across this shape. And this is the airport runway for the James B. Wheeler downtown airport. So what I did is, among screen caps, but I just cut it out and traced the shape. And then at the time I was using a woodworking process called CNC. I was using a CNC router. So taking the shape and then programming the router to cut it out for me. And that's what this looks like. Most of them have a 4x8 foot bed. So I was taking plywood and then programming the router to cut out those lines. And then after a lot of sanding and a lot of paint, it looks like this. And so this is about 13.5 feet wide. And I was interested in the way that I could miniaturize this large scale like thing that's almost beyond comprehension. The amount of roadways and maps that cover our planet and direct our navigation and the way that we see the world onto this thing that could fit on a wall. And then to engage the viewer even more, I painted the interior edges, the original colors from the map. So there was this shift as one would walk from one side of the work to the other. And so that informed my practice for the next couple of years. Here's one of LAX. And then here's one of the Houston International Airport. And this is about 15.5 feet wide or long, and then 5.5 feet tall. So they're fairly large. Installers hated my work because it would just, it was just so intensive to hang. But then I was like, okay, so if I take these shapes, but what would it look like to become more personal? So these are maps made from neighborhoods outside of my childhood home in New Orleans. And then I was like, okay, so I'm interested in what these shapes look like, but what if the way that I remembered them influenced what they looked like and the colors they took on? So I began to trace drawings of blueprints of my childhood home as if it were maps themselves, like if you were looking down from the top. And this is about 8.5 feet long. And then this one, each panel is about 5 feet wide. So I'm still playing with colors, still playing with shift in perspective, but it has a much more impactful meaning to me that I hope to share with the viewer. And then I took it a step further and was like, okay, I'm thinking about these shapes and what they look like, but what if you could move them around? So this is a map that I made for the West Bottoms in Kansas City that allowed the viewer to give commentary on an incoming development to a neighborhood, so that the city was working towards these plans that would essentially take buildings out, but giving the community more of a say in what was happening was important so they could feel heard and seen. And so I took each building, so there's 52 buildings in this map, and I made it each into an individual shape that then the audience could move around and rearrange. This is one of their versions of it. And then, so right after that, I was then invited to work on this thing called the West Bottoms Reborn Project, which implemented 3 public spaces in the West Bottoms. So here's that original map that I worked with, and then to the left of it is the map that I would then work with for the next 2.5 years. And my first task was to kind of understand all of the research that this design center had been putting out, which were these really dense maps and investigations that I just didn't understand or know how to relate to as an artist. So I cut them up and flipped them over and turned them into these layered collages, so I could see the negative space more clearly and get a feel for the shapes that we were working with. And that in turn led to these Jello shapes, which is what we called them. So this is the Liberty Courtyard site that I worked with for over a year. And so these Jello shapes gave us the site extents of like, this is the space that we're trying to cultivate and experience in and give the residents and visitors like some sort of ownership in. So then we analyzed it for over a year, and it was this long process of studying how vehicles drove through it and how pedestrians used the space. It's a hotspot for photographers, and then also understanding the sun and shade studies and where it had a huge water management issue, so where water was collecting. Still didn't get it. I was like, this is so removed from the interaction that I'm used to having with my artwork. So we decided, well, I decided and brought a bunch of people on with me to start drawing these studies out physically on the ground plane of the site with a sports line chalker. So then where the water washed away the line is where the water collected, or where the vehicles drove over the chalk lines, they began to shift. So we could actually have this tangible way to visualize the research that the architects were generating on their computers. And so these studies led to the zones, where we then a year later dropped our implementations into. So there's a green wall along with the water management system. And this project won 2 awards from the American Institute of Architects, and then another design award last year from the American Society of Landscape Architecture. But I still make maps. It's still like a lifelong obsession. And this is a CNC process from one that I created last year for the Lowe's Hotel, which just finished in Kansas City. They had an airport themed concept, kind of like some mid-century mod, and then like the TWA hotel next to JFK. And so they wanted a runway of their own for the hotel, and I made them this 16.5-foot long monstrosity. It is CNC cut, and then the white surface, and then with the white surface, and then the interior edges are painted different colors from their own concepts, but also as a viewer comes up the escalator, there is an ombre effect from light to dark, as if you were like looking out of the port window from an airplane. So there's still the viewership shift, and then just like a really nice clean shape. It's mostly from my imagination, but also it collages lines from the Google Maps highway system that surrounds the hotel, which gives it its accessibility and location. So it's kind of like a really research intensive process, and it becomes this beautiful object, but it's, I don't know, but I don't really have anything like deep to say about it, but it's really fulfilling work, and I'm really glad to shift a viewer's perspective of what is mundane and what we're so used to seeing on our little screens can become this big experience. So.
This is amazing, Miranda. Like, we're friends and I know what you do, but I didn't know about this. So this is really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And thanks for letting me share. It's kind of a long thing. And this is clearly like a PowerPoint from I pulled down from like a 30-minute lecture. So
yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Miranda. This is really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Up next is Jeremy. Jeremy, do you want me to share your slideshow, or you want to share that from your screen?
We can actually skip it. I feel like it'll work better without it. So yeah, I appreciate it. So if I haven't met you, I'm Jeremy. I am on the organizing team for Creative Mornings. So hopefully I've gotten to meet a lot of you. And one of the things that we say at Creative Mornings is that everyone is creative, and me following somebody like Miranda is a good test of that because she is super creative and artistic, and I'm kind of just a guy. So the reason that Lindsay asked me to share on the theme of transit is that I'm a cyclist, and I love cycling. I do competitive cycling, so I ride with a team in town, and I do races around the Midwest. So when I say cyclist, I'm not like the guy with the backpack, like pedaling through downtown. I love that, love all cycling. But this is more like the full spandex, like pedaling as hard as you can for like 2 or 3 hours. And then if you puke at the end of the ride, like you've done your job. So there are a few things that I think that creatives can learn from cycling. And it's because cycling is such a simple sport. There's really no strategy involved besides just pedaling harder, and just, the goal is to just not stop pedaling. So because it's so simple, and nothing in life is that simple, I think that's what I enjoy about it. But I think there are some good kind of principles that carry over into the complications of life, and in particular creativity. And the first big theme that I thought of was the idea of resistance. There are a few big forms of resistance in cycling. There's wind, there's weather, and there's gravity. There's hills. And so I think of wind as like the constant resistance. If you are pedaling into a headwind, it is an awful feeling. And if you're pedaling with a tailwind, with the wind behind you, it's a wonderful feeling. You feel like you're in great shape. Often we don't realize when we have the tailwind, when we have a lot of momentum, when things are going really well, we just think we're like great cyclists or great creatives. But whenever there's a headwind, you really feel it. The reality in cycling is that you can't be a good rider without spending a lot of time in wind. In the same way you may have heard the line that trees are made stronger by wind. I think that's a good sort of illustration for our lives as people and our lives as creatives, that there's always going to be resistance. One of my favorite books, definitely my favorite book on creativity, if you can see that, The War of Art. It's by Stephen Pressfield, who is a screenwriter. And he writes about resistance as this force, like an almost personal force. And so he says, the things that commonly elicit resistance are the pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, any creative art. He says the launching of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise, for profit or otherwise, the act of any political, moral, or ethical courage, the taking of any principled stand in adversity. Anytime you do any one of these things, you're going to face an enormous amount of resistance, and you're going to be, you know, in a sense, pedaling directly into a headwind. And I think that that's something that those of you who are creatives professionally probably feel on a daily basis. I feel it in the work that I'm in, that there is always resistance that I'm moving against. And so that's how I think of wind. And then when I think of rain, I think of the unexpected resistance, things that you can't plan for. When Lindsay was starting this and the team of us were starting Creative Mornings in Columbia, the first thing we were told was that Creative Mornings would only, have a host site in a city of 1 million or more. And so we ignored that and decided to go ahead with an application. We made a video with interviews. It took about a year, if that sounds right, Lindsay, to get our application fully submitted. It took probably 3 or 4 months to hear back. Lindsay had another interview. And then we finally launched in February, and then March happened. So we had one event in person. And I think that's just a good model of what any creative or startup endeavor is like. It takes way more time and energy than you thought it would. And then the moment you launch it, if you have like a minute of success, you just face more resistance. And that's kind of the way cycling is. Rain comes out of nowhere. Hills was the third thing I mentioned. You find yourself immediately going up a steep hill and gravity's working against you. There's always resistance in cycling and in creativity. And I remember the first time I was riding, when I was starting to cycle, and I was riding with somebody a lot better than me. We were coming up on a hill, and he just said, like, look down at your pedals, just keep those things moving. And the idea was, like, it doesn't matter how slow you're going, whether you're going like 15 miles an hour or 4 miles an hour, as long as your pedals are moving forward, you will eventually reach the top of the hill. Which on a lot of hills I've been on, especially in Colorado and things like that, it's the only thing you can do. It's too much to focus on reaching the top. You just have to think about keeping your pedals moving. There's a quote that I love by Mother Teresa. She says, choose always the hardest thing. And I've found that to be it's become one of my favorite quotes, because I think there are so many decisions that we face in life where we're tempted to take some kind of easy way out or some kind of shortcut, and almost always the right thing to do is the hardest thing. And so I think about that a lot when I'm on a bike, because it is so much resistance. It is so repetitive. But for me, it's been super therapeutic. And I think that's the last thing I'll mention is the pain of cycling. In competitive cycling, you are in pain the entire time. It's kind of the goal of riding fast, is if it's not hurting, then you're not pushing hard enough. And there's a bunch of studies that have been done on professional cyclists, people that are way, way better than me, that do the Tour de France and stuff like that. And they have some of the highest levels of depression and clinical anxiety. There is a huge number of people who have been through sexual abuse and physical abuse that become professional cyclists. And I think the reason for that, and what people suggest, is that the pain of cycling is something you can control. And it kind of drives out pains that you can't control. And so for me, I try to see the pain of cycling and the pain that we can't control as well, as things that can keep us moving forward. There's one of the lines in Pressfield's book is that I've learned one skill, and that's how to be miserable. And I think that's like great for cycling, and it's great for creativity, because it is so much work. There's so much pain involved. But the pain is kind of what lets you know that you're like moving towards something that matters. If there's relational pain in your life, it's because those relationships matter to you. If you're in pain on a bike, it's because you're going as hard as you possibly can. And so the last thing I thought of is not cycling related, but I've found this story to be incredibly helpful for creativity. And it's the story of Norman MacLean. So if you know him, not a cyclist, but a writer. One of the things I often feel in my own creative life, in a lot of life, is that there are these voices in my head that say that I can't do something, that I'm too young or too old, or it's almost like I can see somebody's face telling me that I shouldn't be doing something creative. I shouldn't be, writing an article or a book. And so I always like to think of Norman MacLean. So he was born in 1902, went to college with Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss. After college, he went to get a PhD, and that took him 12 years. And so he got his first job teaching literature when he was 38, and he taught until he was 71, but never wrote anything himself. When he was 71, he retired, and his children and grandchildren encouraged him to finally write something of his own. He had been in the Forest Service in Montana, and he had always loved trees, and so he wrote about 100-page short story where all the publishers that he sent it to rejected it. And one publisher in particular said it just has too many trees in it. It'll never sell. So his university's printing press printed it for him. And the book's called A River Runs Through It. If you haven't read it, it is one of the great works of American fiction. And within 2 years, he was nominated for a Pulitzer when he was 73. And I love this story because I think there is so much resistance in our lives that we are constantly pushing back on. And the more we push back on it, the more we get to a place where we've absorbed all these life lessons, we've overcome so much. And even if you feel like you haven't accomplished everything that you want to, you're never too old. And Norman MacLean is like my favorite example of that. The thought of writing something in your 70s for the first time and having it be that incredible. Like, he never wrote another book. Like, there's no reason to. He got the Pulitzer. So welcome the resistance. Don't let your critics determine your future. Keep your pedals moving. That's what I've got from the world of competitive cycling. So back to you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's cool. I love that book. That movie is also really great. So if you have not indulged in that piece of fiction, I encourage you to do so. Thanks, Miranda and Jeremy, for just vulnerability to share a little bit about what your creative endeavors look like. So before we move over to Elise, we have 1 or 2 more slides to go through. I'm going to share the screen. We like to read our Creative Mornings Manifesto before each meeting, so everyone is on the same page in terms of what our goal is as an organization and why it's important. So I've asked Craig to read this for us. Craig's part of our organizing team. So Craig, if you wouldn't mind reading the manifesto, and then we'll move into the transit talk from Elise and co.
Sounds good. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others and hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome.
Thanks so much, Craig. So we're moving on into our theme for this month is transit. So each month the artwork of the theme is created by one of our global chapters. This month was done by the Cleveland chapter, and the illustration was by a local member of that community named Aaliyah Ray. So if you're curious and learning more about her, you can do a quick Google search and see more of her work. But I'm going to stop sharing here and then kick it over to either Carrie or Miranda, whoever would like to introduce our speaker for this month, and then we'll get started.
Great. Yeah, I'll take it. So a fabulous thing about art is that it can show up anywhere. An unexpected mural down an otherwise drab alleyway, a sculpture tucked away on a trail, an intricate painting making an everyday item something beautiful. With this theme of transit this month, we had an opportunity to look at how creativity shows up in the most mundane places, the interstitial spaces between where we are and where we're going. So this month, we are hearing from Elise Buchheit, the program specialist for Columbia's Office of Cultural Affairs. And as part of many programs that she works on, Elise organizes the Traffic Box Art program that makes waiting at stoplights in downtown Columbia just a little bit more interesting. Elise advocates for the benefits of public art and creating spaces for creativity wherever people are. So thank you, Elise, for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
I'm very proud. I just remembered to unmute myself before speaking. Thank you all so much. This is such a privilege, and I really enjoyed Miranda and Jeremy, what you guys had to share. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm joined today by Tootie Burns. Let's see. I can't do this. I can't do two things at once. All right. There it is. All right. I am joined today by Tootie Burns, who's an artist. You may see her work around town, but she is her main home is at Orr Street Studios. She's also a member of the Standing Committee on Public Art, and also Amanda Harms, who's an author and illustrator in Columbia, and she was our 2018 Traffic Box Artist. And they're both on the call, and they'll be joining us for different sections of this. So before we get started into the traffic box part of this, I just wanted to bring up some of the many places in Columbia where you see art while in transit. Up here in the corner on the left is a mural in the MKT underpass on the trail downtown. And we have, I believe, 5 murals on those underpasses. The center one is the horses, Untitled Horses is the name of that piece. They're by Michaels on Stadium. The next one is Tidal Murmur, and that is at one of our newer city-owned parking garages downtown. The one on the bottom left is actually called Time in Transit, and that is a piece in the Wabash bus station. The next piece, Blues in Schools, you'll find that on Walnut Street when you're downtown. And finally, the Gateways Project, that's one of our light pieces in the district, and that's the one down by Flat Branch Park. So one of the benefits of having an Office of Cultural Affairs in the city government, it's actually kind of a unique setup, especially for a town our size. And the benefit is that we are, Public Works is 1 floor up. We are able to work more cohesively as projects and public work projects are happening, and really be able to do some of these pretty unique projects as construction develops. So for instance, the Tidal Murmur is a Percent for Art project. The city has this philosophy that when you put up a new public works building, that is the time to create an artistic piece. That we don't just want our town to be developing without consideration for making places artistic, making places visually appealing. And so some of the more familiar art pieces that you may recognize around town are from the Percent for Art program. For instance, the keyhole in front of City Hall, in the Arc, the guy diving into the wave, that's a Percent for Art piece. And they're really kind of throughout. Actually, the bus station one down here was also a Percent for Art piece when they updated Wabash bus station. And one of the things that's really amazing about public art is that it brings the art to people who may not go into museums, who may not consider themselves artists. I was looking up stats this morning, and only 24% of people visit an art museum or art gallery in a year. And certainly you can imagine in different populations of people, that number goes down considerably. I imagine that that's highly focused on older people, on wealthier people, on white people. And so public art gives you the opportunity to expand your audience. And that's really important because we know that viewing art reduces stress. It gives you a window into other people's perspectives and cultures. And it also just increases civic engagement and civic pride. That's our mission here at Columbia, is to make this city the best place to live, work, learn, and play. And I regularly hear praise over these types of projects that make people proud of Columbia. And the one I hear the most about is the traffic boxes. So we'll get into that one specifically. It's the thing when people ask me what I do for a living, I mention the traffic boxes, and then they always are delighted. So this program was created because we were having a lot of graffiti on the downtown boxes. You know, it's a kind of a perfect little canvas there, and it's pretty easy to put a tag very quickly at nighttime. And those boxes are important for the functioning of the traffic lights. And it's important that they're able to be accessed, that they're not vandalized or damaged in any way. That could be a dangerous situation. They are live, there's electricity in the boxes. And then also just for the visual enjoyment downtown, you really aren't looking for unofficial, unauthorized graffiti. You know, these were not works of art. They weren't Banksy's. They were tags. And so we were looking for a way to decrease that graffiti vandalism and encourage the artistic endeavor. And we found in that research that when you hire artists to put their work on the boxes, anyone who considers themselves a graffiti artist is unlikely to tag that box or to put their own work on that box because they respect the other artist's work. And so we ran a pilot project in 2007 with this box in the photo. And this is at 9th and Broadway, so a highly trafficked downtown intersection. And David Spear is a super well-known local artist. His work is up in Addison's, now it's on the side of Harpo's. It's just pretty much all over. And so he was hired by the city to do the first box. And the initial program had financial support from the Columbia Police Department. And that lasted for a few years. And now we continue receiving support from the district. Thank you, Nikki. And from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then the program went so well that first year that we added it into our annual budget. So we do one annual call a year, and then we also do a school program call, which I'll get into a little bit later. So our current collection, these are some you may have seen downtown. The first one is David Spear's first box, and it was similar to his design for the Roots and Blues and Barbecue Festival that year. He did the poster. The Lisa Bartlett one is next, and actually I think she did last year's Roots and Blues poster. Kate Gray did the art and architecture box there, and then Brittany Williamson did the puppy box, which is a real favorite on Instagram as people are walking their dogs downtown. And we have 17 total boxes that are installed at the moment. And most of them are downtown. We have one so far over by the library, but we've got 17, and this map actually has the 18th one there that is in progress. We have 4 of those are school boxes, and we have one more school box coming soon. And as far as what's left downtown, we are kind of running out of a room with our traffic boxes. So I was counting it up the other day, I think there's only 2 or 3 unarted boxes left, naked boxes. So we're gonna have to consider what the next steps of the program look like after we're done with those. All right, let's see if I can get this video to play. So for our process for this, each year we put up a call for entries for local artists only. We really consider this an opportunity to give local artists a chance to have their work paid for and to have their work displayed. And so we keep this just to the local community. And those entries come in and I make them into these little tiny traffic boxes. And we have our standing committee on public art convene, and they review the boxes and they make a decision. And then that goes to the Commission on Cultural Affairs and then the City Council. We have an agreement with the artist, and then we work on installation. And that process takes a few months. And then installation, the artist usually has a few months to work on it. And sometimes there is a back and forth. The committee might make a recommendation about a small change or ask to see something different. It's a little bit of a give and take, but for the most part, the artists have a lot of liberty to present their vision. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tootie Burns from the Standing Committee to talk about how the committee goes about that selection. Are you there, Tootie?
There, can you hear me, Elise?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Elise gave such a wonderful start for our traffic box program, and I do want to talk a little bit about the selection process as far as the Standing Committee on Public Art. We are so lucky to be able to interact with these artists and have the submissions that come in. And what I love about the Standing Committee, and I've been a member now for about 8 years, I guess, it happens pretty fast. We receive the applications, Elise prepares them for us, we discuss them, we determine appropriateness as far as the location of the box and working with the artist. It's been fun over the years to see boxes that we selected a work or an artist that was going to create something that was colorful and vibrant and you know, would not encourage the tagging or defacement of the box. And that process is kind of honed over the years to looking where the box is and seeing if there was one by the post office in the Sharp End district that perhaps we would want to reflect that, or the box by Grant School. They look like paper dolls. It's a bunch of children that are depicted in the box. And so as the committee has seen the boxes grow, we've been able to kind of refine how we choose the selection for the area that it's going to be in. And something else that's been interesting is originally they were all hand painted. You'd see the artist out there working on the box, whether it was hot, cold. Some of the boxes took hours and hours. And I don't know, it was about 5 years ago that we did the first vinyl wrap, maybe longer, where a piece was photographed, created into a vinyl wrap, and then wrapped onto the box. And the artists know that the boxes can be worked on or replaced at any time. So the understanding is that ideally your box will be there forever. Like, you know, David Spears' box is still there, but sometimes the city will need to replace a box. So our committee has the joy of being able to see the submissions in a variety of different works, people interpreting the space, interpreting the box, and then making a selection that we feel works with the space. And it's fun we've done a couple of ribbon cuttings, and that's been a really neat thing that Elise has organized, where the community can come down when the box is kind of introduced. And I'm just so proud that Columbia has the Office of Cultural Affairs and we have the staff that we have, because it is important for the public art in our community. Things we take for granted. I know I take for granted sometimes just walking down the street, but I'd encourage everyone to go out and go on a box tour, because they're all different and they're all great.
Awesome, thanks, Tootie. And I have an image here. Dennis Murphy did the box at Hit and Broadway, and I always like to show his sketch because, my goodness, it's so detailed, and that box really is wonderful. If you go up and look, there's so many small details. Not all of our submissions are this detailed, and they do not need to be. I think Dennis like had it down to the centimeter. So, all right, and now I'm gonna turn it over to Amanda Harms, and she's gonna talk about her work as the 2018 artist.
Hi, thank you, Elise. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, awesome. Well, thank you for having us. This has been, doing the Traffic Box program has been a gift that's kept giving, just because it's created so much positive connection in my life and in my career as well. So, so thank you. As far as why I applied for the program initially, at the time I was studying art at Columbia College, and Columbia College works closely with the community to look for opportunities for the students to kind of push themselves a little bit further than what they're requiring in the classroom. So I found out about it through that avenue, and then just as a lifelong citizen of Columbia, I've lived here since I was very little, and have always loved Columbia, and even though I've lived all around the world, Columbia is a special place for me. It doesn't feel like anywhere else. And one of the things that I love about it is the public art program. So walking around Columbia and then being surprised by a colorful traffic box, especially, I just have a lot of affinity for those unexpected art surprises that you see around town. So having the opportunity to add to that collection was really exciting for me as well. When it came to picking the subject matter, I thought pretty broadly at first, trying to think, you know, what does Columbia mean to me? What is the culture of our city? What sets it apart from other places that I've lived and been to? And one of the things that history was never my strong point, but when I turn it into a story or a visual, it gets really exciting. So especially that area of town when I was younger and still today, it's one of the few, there used to be a few more cobbled roads in Columbia, but a lot of them have been paved over or changed or rerouted. And so it's one of the few places in town where you can still find cobbled roads on this corner where the traffic box was located. So that ended up being kind of the cornerstone of my brainstorming. And so when I started thinking about the world as it was when that street was paved, as well as what made Columbia a city worth sticking around for, was the transportation by train for commerce and for the growth of this Central Missouri location. So since the train played such an important role in that, and it's so close at this corner, to be close to the MKT trail, which was originally where the train tracks were set, it made that really click. Started doing research, and this train that's featured here is actually a diesel that would have run in the mid 1900s, I think the 50s, was a close, used some artistic license, but the color scheme and some of the design elements are from those engines that would have run through this area. I chose to paint the box mostly, well, there's a couple of reasons. One of them was cost. You know, I didn't have the tools to make it easy to get a digital image from a physical. I'm a two-dimensional artist mostly, so I would have had to photograph and then figure out a way to get that into a vinyl wrap. The vinyl wrap can be a pricey endeavor as well. So for me, it made sense to paint the way I make art, all the other, you know, in general. Also, I feel like there is a tactile experience to both installing the art as well as experiencing the art when it is done with paint instead of a vinyl wrap. I feel that comes through from the viewer's end as well, because you can get close to it, you can feel the texture of the paint, you can see the texture of the paint, and that is meaningful for me with what I wanted to share with the city. That does create challenges. Acrylic paint is what I used. It dries quickly, so I didn't have to worry too much about things getting stuck in it. But weather and traffic and other things like that were challenges that I'd never had to deal with. I've only created art in a studio prior to working on this public art project. So that was, I didn't know what to expect from it, but I kind of go with the flow. So it all worked out fine. I did end up painting really early in the morning, day after day, because that corner gets a lot of sunlight and it was a pretty hot spring. So I went there before people were getting to work, and about 8 o'clock a.m. is when I finished up each day. So as far as how it changed, how did my approach change? I would say that really trying to get a two-dimensional image on a three-dimensional object was something that pushed me as an artist. And it's connected me, like I was saying when I first began talking, as an artist, this has created so many opportunities for me to work with, whether it's a journalism student that's contacting me to do an assignment, or it's another school who's, like I spoke with Centralia School's art teacher and presented to the classroom of their high school students because they wanted to begin Traffic Box program in Centralia and they wanted to have an idea on how to do that. And so it's given me an opportunity to share what I've learned through this process, as well as connected me with other local artists here in Columbia and allowed me to be a much more supportive and engaged member of this community. So it's been a really positive experience and has had lasting effects for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
So in addition to these annual project boxes, I mentioned that we have the school projects, and I have 3 examples up here. Oh, you know what? Actually, we have 5 school boxes. But the one by the library is our newest one, and those were actual paper dolls that students at Shepherd Elementary created, and they were asked to consider the ways that they are the same and different from their classmates and to create their identity on this paper doll. And so then some of them were selected by the teacher, and with that is a vinyl wrap on that box. The center one there is by Battle High School students, and they considered what justice means to them as they were creating this box that went near the courthouse. So several of them created their own style of the courthouse, and they considered words that they identified with, meanings towards justice and towards fairness and equality. And so they were able to create a really interesting artistic statement about this box. One of the better artistic statements, honestly, from all of our adult artists even. And then the box there on the left is the sharp end box, and that was by students at Douglas High School. And this is near the post office, as Tootie mentioned. We began looking to do this box as one of our annual projects. And then thankfully, I wasn't here at the time, so I'm not sure how it happened, but we became aware of the fact that that box should be representative of the sharp end and should commemorate that area and the history. And so we saved that box for a different project. And the students there have 4 different panels, each representing a different time of the day in the sharp end historically. So they have some historic buildings from the sharp end and moments, and they met with community members to interview them about what is important to know about the sharp end as they were developing those art projects. And that was something I did want to mention, the idea of considering equity in this process with art. We had a box last year done near Trops, and Nikki Davis on the call, she was on that selection committee actually as well. And we had one really wonderful piece that was a hand drawing of William Jewell's house. He was, I suppose, one of the early mayors of Columbia and helped create the first hospital, several really remarkable things. But as we did research on him, we understood that he had been a slave owner, and he was part of the group at First Baptist Church that insisted on segregation of the churches, which led to the founding of Second Baptist Church in Columbia. And that is important history that we couldn't give a context for on a traffic box. That we wanted to be able to express more about that history than the traffic box art would allow. And so a different artist was selected for several reasons. But as we're looking at this process, it's important for us to make sure that we have people on our selection committee that have varied perspectives and histories and backgrounds and cultures, so that we can make sure that these boxes represent all of Columbia, and that no one is excluded by the artwork on them. So as for what's next in our transit, the next traffic box we're addressing, well, we have one near the courthouse at Ash, and that one, the wrap on that will be happening in the next few weeks. And then after that, our next school project will involve middle schools, and the box conveniently is at Clinkscales and Worley, right by West Middle School. And so we'll be sending out, it's a little difficult right now, as you can imagine, to ask middle schoolers to do art right now at home, but also collaboratively. So we're still working through the details on how to do that. On the left, I have a picture of a mock-up of a new bus stop design that Public Works is planning on doing sometime in the near future. And they're looking to have art as a part of these bus stops. This is really exciting because it'll be a way to add art in some areas of Columbia that just don't have a lot of other pieces, more residential areas, more industrial areas. And so we're just waiting for the go-ahead on them to launch a call for artists. Some additional things that are coming up, we have the Percent for Art projects at the new Columbia Regional Airport Terminal. And the artists, we have a national artist on a 6-figure contract, and then a local artist on about a $15,000 contract. And they are working on their proposals right now, and those will be available for public comment probably sometime around the end of the year. And those are going to be a lot of people's first entry into Columbia, to be able to see the new terminal and experience art in that way. So we're really excited to see what they have. Some other small projects, Nikki and the district team are working on some door projects, hopefully in the next year or so. You know how everything is a little bit off of our normal schedules right now, but they are always encouraging art downtown, and you know, the new murals in Alley A and down in the North Village. There's always things going on in the district, and they do a really good job of keeping things fresh. I believe that, I think if Patricia is still on, True False is looking at doing some painting on the garbage receptacles downtown, a project with the students, and that had to be on hold as school was out of session. So they'll be getting back to that, I believe, either this year or next year. Sorry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Patty. So we have a lot of different projects. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the Loop. The Loop Community Improvement District has been working on several different art initiatives, including their pop-up parks and the flags on the street poles. And then I just heard from Carrie Gartner the other day, who's the executive director with them, that they received tentative approval from the Missouri Department of Transportation to start addressing some traffic boxes on the Loop. And that's a huge win, because honestly, it is just a whole new level of bureaucracy to try and work with MoDOT on these projects. So we've only been doing Columbia-owned projects so far. So I think that kind of goes over about everything, and looks like we're almost there on time. So I will just give our more information things here. I have Amanda and 2D's websites there. I encourage you to go check out their art. ComoArts.com is our website where you can get more information. We have videos of a lot of our past Traffic Box artists. And then the AutoCast app. This is something you can download on your phone, and it doesn't have the Traffic Boxes on there yet. But we have all of our other public art on there, and you can usually hear from the artist about how they created the art, what their inspiration was. It's got a map. It's a pretty cool thing. And if you travel anywhere, a lot of towns have AutoCast tours in their area as well. All right. I will stop sharing and open it up if anybody has anything.
Can we do it, Lindsay?
Yeah. I actually have a question. Nikki was going to kind of run the Q&A, but I know that we're right at time. So if anyone needs to hop off, that's fine. I do want to take just a few minutes to allow for questions. My biggest question is there a time limit? Is there opportunity for the boxes to be repainted or rewrapped? Like whoever's art is there, is it there forever? Or is there a time limit like, hey, your art's featured for a particular time and then we want to open it up to someone else? Or how does that process work since you're kind of running out of boxes? What is the opportunity for new visuals on those boxes?
Yeah, so decommissioning is a huge part of the public art world. And in our agreements with the artists, we unfortunately can't get any guarantee. I think as 2D mentioned, like the city may, for whatever reason, need to replace a box. Either there's a traffic accident that damages it, or they need to upgrade equipment. So there is no guarantee. We try and aim for 10 years. And the way that we have the order of the boxes is given to us by Public Works based on, that's why we haven't addressed the box at 9th and Elm, because at some point they say they're going to replace it soon. And so after that happens, that's when we would want to do a project. But we are talking about, as we only have a couple boxes left, what that next decommissioning process works like. The vinyl wraps do start kind of peeling at the top a little bit. So those might be ones that we have to replace a little bit sooner. And I'm not sure, if we would want to have some kind of memorializing of the box. We certainly take a lot of photos. And a few of the artists have moved away. So I think there would probably be some kind of conversation with the artist, making sure it's not a surprise, and setting the ship off to sail on fire or whatever it may be. But yeah, we will likely start redoing some of those boxes.
What's the best way to find out when you guys open up those for submissions?
Yeah, so if you join our email newsletter, in normal times it goes out once a week. Right now it's twice a month-ish. We always have the calls to artists on there, and we also have another email just for artists, for different opportunities that we can share with them. And you can email oca@como.gov if you would like to be put on any of those. We have it always on our social media, and we try and get it out there pretty far, but the annual calls usually go out in February or March.
Right. So if anyone has any questions and you don't want to use the mic, you can put them over in the chat box and we can read them off for you. But that was fantastic. And I learned a lot, and I should know these things already. How long does it, maybe for Amanda, how long did that take you to complete it from start to finish?
It was about 8 days, I think, of painting, a couple hours a day. So yeah, from priming to sealing. It's not too bad, really. It's a big box.
Pretty amazing.
And we have a special sealant that goes on there. We actually buy it from there's like one distributor of this type of sealant in St. Louis, and it is like a graffiti coating. So it does, if there is graffiti on the box, it's much easier to remove it.
I am curious about the graffiti artists too. I guess there is an application process, but I'd be kind of curious if anyone in that kind of realm of artistry would want to tag the box in a more artistic way rather than just like so graffiti art. I don't know if that's something that's ever been brought up or anyone's ever applied to do something like that, but that could be a cool way to engage that segment of artists.
Yeah, so one of our requirements on the program is that it not look like graffiti. My personal aesthetic, I will come clean and say that about 14 years ago, I did do some illicit graffiti in this town. It's gone now. So, it can be a really nice aesthetic. And actually, Tootie or Levi is on our committee as well, and he has more of that artistic style. We do allow words, but they cannot be promoting a business. And then the style, we are trying not to encourage the tagging style. But graffiti art can be many different styles. So Tootie or Levi, do either of you have a comment there?
I can just, go ahead, Tootie.
No, you go ahead, Levi, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's like a bias against a so-called graffiti style. I think that we just want to be clear, like that if people think other people are writing on it without authorization, then they will feel more welcome to do that on other boxes. So it's not like, I think maybe people have like perceived it as a bias against, a so-called graffiti look. And it really is just going back to the discouraging other people from taking it upon themselves and nothing with the actual aesthetic.
And just to add to that, I know that the Museum of Art and Archaeology and also Orr Street Studios have kicked around the idea of a graffiti show at some point in time. And I think that would be a really exciting avenue to explore as far as a different art form and learning more about it. So if it can't be on the boxes, hopefully we can find a way to celebrate that art form at some point in time.
Absolutely. Those are both great points. As great as it is to have a department of the arts, you are also limited when you have government sponsored art. And so having somewhere like Orr Street or, another art studio sponsored kind could be able to accomplish.
Just curious, so that's a great answer to the question. Also, sorry, my 14-pound cat just like assumes that this is like her domain today. Really appreciate you, Elise, being here and bringing some guests along with you. This was fascinating. I am so obsessed with that cat that's at Hit Street and Broadway. That's my favorite piece. I'm sure on my Instagram somewhere there's a photo of that one. So I didn't realize there was a whole project behind it until Miranda and Carrie kind of brought it to my attention when we wanted to host you. So thanks for being here and being a part of our little organization. We hope you join us in the future, just as a guest. So our next event will be in November. We're always the third Friday of the month. We are not having an event in December. We're going to take a month off and relaunch in 2021. So we have one more event for the year, but just stay tuned for social channels for that info. But otherwise, everyone have a good morning. Thanks for staying on a little bit longer, and we'll see you next month.